Good evening and welcome commissioners, applicants, and interested parties to the April 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. My name is Valerio Romano. I'm the chair of the commission and will be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 260 of the Cohasset bylaws governing wetlands protection, and Chapter 263 of the bylaws governing stormwater management. The Conservation Commission meeting is now in session and is being held on Zoom. If you have any questions for the commission, please type them in the Q&A section of the Zoom app. Please include your name and address to be recognized. When called upon, please limit your discussion to 3 minutes. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission is the town's conservation agent, Charlotte Pechtel. I'll now take a roll call of the Conservation Commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre, present.
Steve Magnell.
Steve Magnell, present.
And Valerio Romano, present. And we expect Commissioner Fernando to be along shortly, and we'll have him announce himself when he gets here. Next, so we right now have a quorum of 5 commissioners. After 11 years, Angela Giso has retired from the commission. We thank her very much for her wonderful years of service to the town. We had a fun party for her last week and wish her well. But we'd like to welcome Melinda Wall, our town's new Building and Conservation Department Administrative Assistant. Welcome, Melinda. Charlotte, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Welcome, Mindy. Yeah, Mindy, I guess your preferred name, so we'll go with that. And yeah, she just started on Tuesday. She's been learning the ropes in the building department. I'll start looping her in with conservation early next week, and she's here to join us tonight to listen in. And as you guys may have heard, she's already listened to some of our meetings, so she's getting the details on us, and that's awesome. She has a background in biology and also used to work in a dental office for over 15, 16 years, and also worked in landscape contracting, and also has, it's a certificate, Mindy, in architecture?
So I have a degree in architecture and a certificate in construction management.
That's awesome. And then you're also working on a GIS certificate as well? I
am, yep.
Yeah, so she has an awesome background, experience, and knowledge. So we're really happy to have her, and I will definitely be working with her over the next few months to, get her trained in the ways of conservation.
I'm excited to be working
for what we need here. That's awesome to have you aboard, Mindy.
Thank you.
Welcome,
I'm excited.
Mindy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have minutes for approval. So what I'd like to do, if unless there's any objection, is postpone the approval of the February 6th minutes to another hearing. But otherwise, we have some old minutes. We're finally getting caught up in approving them. I know not everybody was necessarily on board for some of these minutes, but we've spoken to town council, and the best thing to do is just to move forward and approve them. So I'm going to just read off the list of the minutes and give any commissioner a chance to speak up if they would like to either postpone or have any amendments to any of the minutes. So we have the June 18th, 2020 minutes. We have the December 17th, 2020 minutes. We have the October 7th, 2021 minutes. And we have the December 21st, 2021 minutes. And finally, the December 29th, 2021 minutes. Do any commissioners have any input regarding any of those minutes?
Am I the only one that was present for those meetings?
It was,
I was.
Oh, and Kathy, Kathy and I are probably the only ones that were present for any of these.
Chris, I think you were present for some of those as well.
Sorry?
In
Yeah.
2021, I think you were present for the 2021 ones.
Chris is like, am I getting that old?
This was, yeah, I mean, we unfortunately, these kind of just fell through the cracks, and I did talk to town council, and they basically said, I mean, as long as commissioners have read the minutes and, retrospectively, we can just approve them if the commissioners have no comments. But yeah, this will not happen again. We're just cleaning a backlog of some minutes that just never got written, so.
Great. So with that, unless any commissioners have any other input changes, I'm just going to do a roll call vote for the whole group of minutes all at once.
Well, we have to make a motion to approve.
Yes. That's my next move. Thank you. Thank you for Chairman Bell, who keeps me in line. I appreciate it. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for June 18th, 2020, December 17th, 2020, December 7th, 2021, October 7th, 2021, December 21st, 2021, and December 29th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Tom Bell, second.
Roll call vote. All those in favor?
Wait a minute, is it roll call or all in favor?
Oh, no, sorry, roll call, voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So that passes unanimously. Okay,
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, did you want to continue the 2/6/25 minutes to the next meeting? That's April 17th.
yeah, that should give at least me enough time, and I appreciate everyone's indulgence on that.
Yeah, that one went until midnight, so. Yeah.
So the next thing we have, hold on, just make sure I got the right. Our first public hearing, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will now hold a public hearing for notice of intent 2508 to establish a beach management plan to permit beach raking activities at 90 Whitehead Road for Kingsborn Trust of Dallas, Texas. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpechtel@cohassetma.gov, and details for access to the Zoom platform are on the Conservation Commission agenda online at cohassetma.org in the meeting's hearing notices. This hearing is now open. Charlotte, is there anyone from the applicant team to promote?
Hi, Adam. Is this everyone for tonight? And if so, would you kindly introduce us all or everyone?
Thank you. I don't know if Stan Humphries is in the audience.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yep, he's in there.
Excellent. Chair Romano, good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky. I'm a local land use and environmental attorney, and I represent the Kingsborn Trust. With me this evening are Brendan Sullivan, our registered professional engineer and land surveyor with Merrill Associates, Brad Holmes, our professional wetland scientist with ECR, as well as Stan Humphries, a coastal geologist with ECR. And you may remember that this notice of intent is filed in response to an enforcement order issued for unauthorized beach maintenance activities. The property manager at 90 Whitehead Road used a tractor with a beach rake, to maintain the beach. We don't dispute that activity requires authorization, and as such, filed a notice of intent with a proposed beach management plan. Just for your information, the beach management plan is modeled on the beach management plan for Sandy Beach, which the Conservation Commission approved in, I want to say 2023 or around that time, and is consistent with Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management's guidance on beach management. Ms. Pechtel did provide us with a list of questions to which Brad responded to on March 28, and also requested that we submit a variance request for the alteration of more than 1,000 square feet of wetland resource area. With that very brief introduction, I'm going to ask Brendan to describe the site plan and site conditions, and then ask Brad to describe the beach management plan and why it complies with the Wetlands the Wetlands Protection Act, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Wetland Regulation Performance Standards, particularly for coastal beach. And Mr. Humphries is available also to answer any questions. So Brendan, do you want to take over, please?
Sure. So hopefully you can all see the site plan I just pulled up for 90 Whitehead. There's this is at the end of Whitehead Road. This driveway here goes out to 100 Whitehead, goes over to the bridge, over to Whitehead Island at the very end of Whitehead. There's a gravel driveway that services 90 Whitehead, which is the dwelling is up here. Here's the driveway here and turnaround, the existing garage down here. And then of course we got the beach and ledge outcroppings in the area we're talking about out here. You can see the ledge is identified in a hatched area. higher elevation. We get a sandy and rocky intertidal beach here. We get another ledge outcrop over here. There is another ledge outcrop up towards the house. There's a little area of beach intertidal shore in this area here. We're dealing with, so we have the beach, we have a velocity zone, VE 17, velocity zone goes down to 15, and then we have an AE, looks like elevation 10, and then we have 10 that goes down to zone X, just beyond, it's almost just beyond the green line, which is basically, it kind of almost coincides with the front of the coastal dune. I don't want to get too much in the resource areas. I want to stay in my lane here. So, but yeah, most of this is the beach area. The dune grass is followed by the green line here. So, to the bottom of this of the green line is the dune grass. The top of that is the beach. The ledge outcrops. We have mean low water identified, mean high water approximate identified. The total site is just over about approximately 5.5 acres, and that goes to, and that's approximately to about mean high water. So I think that's about it. Maybe I'll turn it over to Brad if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Brendan. Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with ECR. To follow up with what Brendan was describing, that green line at the southern end of the sheet marks the limit of a coastal dune. It's a very healthy coastal dune that they've maintained with American beach grass planting. It's in very good condition. I guess historically it was not, but they have improved it, and it's a nice healthy dune system. What we're proposing in this notice of intent in the area that's shaded in the pink is a beach management plan with beach raking as needed. What we're proposing is that any of those, the beach raking activity would be proposed above the mean high water line. So between the mean high and the mean low water, there would be no activities associated with the beach raking activities. The beach raking would be wouldn't be permitted within the area below mean high water. So what we're proposing to do is, in the beginning of the summer season, there would be a beach raking event to remove excess seaweed, any of the debris that deposited over the winter, and just clean the beach. We put together a step-by-step management plan that details the activities. It goes through the performance standards for coastal beach. You can certainly get into that if you wish, but I'll just overview the activities proposed. So what we would do is, in the beginning of the season, perform a beach raking event. The material that's collected by the beach raking machine, which is a tow behind beach rake behind a rubber tired small tractor, that's deposited along the toe of the coastal bank over towards 90 Whitehead Road, and that deposit pile has actually stabilized the coastal bank there without having the need to propose a coastal armament system. It's a nice kind of like a cobble berm system that's placed along the eroding, which used to be an eroding toe of a coastal bank. And the area would be cleaned and raked. There would be a certain amount of rack that would be left to provide ongoing wildlife habitat. There would be no work into the coastal dune system, so it would be focused between the mean high water line and the edge of the coastal dune. And then once that early summer spring event is complete, it would be a beach raking as needed through the summer season, which would probably, as I've been talking with the property manager, maybe once a month, a very short amount of effort to clean the beach, anything that is washed up from a storm event or just excess seaweed. And there wouldn't be any activities beyond the middle of August or early September. There are no adverse impacts to the coastal beach resource area, as we've documented in the submittal. And as I said, there's a step-by-step approach, which we can go over further, but I just wanted to overview with it with you. I know that you've been able to review it and you may not have more questions than that, and we can bring it for discussion. So with that, before I bring it back to the commission, I'll ask Adam and Brendan if you think I missed something that needed to be discussed, and bring it back to Adam and Brendan before we open to the commission, if that's okay.
Thank you, Brad. I'd rather hear from the commission after they've reviewed these materials.
Great.
Thank you, Brad. Mr. Sullivan, did you have anything else?
Nope.
So before we get to the commissioners, I'd like to hear from you, Charlotte, as to any thoughts you might have.
Yeah, so as Adam referenced this plan, the beach maintenance plan, I don't know if it's possible to pull it up. And it's modeled after a 2023 beach maintenance plan from Sandy Beach. So my comments definitely were kind of just going through that and just seeing in terms of, you know, site specific necessity, like which activities were more of a necessity versus which ones may not be applicable to this particular project. I did have some comments about some of the trails and existing paths to the beach, and potentially maybe restoring some of those paths that do not need to be utilized, and replanting with beach grass. So Brad had provided some comments to that. We did not receive any comments from DEP to date, and I'm not sure if anybody else from the other departments have provided anything, but we did receive a file number for this. And then, you know, just kind of noting that obviously since there is a general observation that, you know, piping plover habitats do seem to be expanding in Massachusetts, just being mindful of that in regards to the proposed activities. It is not a mapped priority habitat, but Sandy Beach will eventually be mapped as priority habitat as Mass Wildlife is actively working on that. So those were most of my comments, which Brad had responded to.
Thanks, Charlotte.
And Chair Romano, this is Adam Brodsky. We did provide a proposal, and Brad can address it to deal with the trail issue. And we have no issue whatsoever with a special condition that obviously if piping plovers are observed on the site, that there can be no activities until that issue is addressed. So we fully support protecting that species. But Brad, with respect to the trails, please remind me what we proposed.
Sure. There's one access way that's used to get to the beach with the equipment. That's shown on the plan. As Charlotte noted in the aerial imagery, it almost looks like there's two. After speaking with the property manager, that's an old path that isn't used, and they'd be happy to revegetate that with American beach grass. They're really diligent on maintaining that beach, and they routinely plant beach grass, so they would be happy to do that. I think it shows up in the aerial imagery, and he didn't even realize that it still is present because he doesn't use it. But when you look from the bird's eye view, you can see it. So that's something that they'd be more than happy to address.
Thanks. Thank you, Brad. So this is sort of interesting because following this discussion on the NOI, we also have the enforcement order on this same topic. So I think we're sort of doing our best to sort of manage the two things together. And perhaps next time you have an opportunity, Attorney Brodsky, you could give us some advice on how you think the two would be handled. But with that, Commissioner Bell, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that the Sandy Beach is a good starting point, the beach management plan there. But I would note that that is a public beach, and this is a private beach. So I'm not sure that it's entirely transferable. We were, of course, looked at giving, I think we issued some variances for that. And ordinarily our variances are circle back to the good to the community, not just to the landowner. So I don't have any specific questions here yet. Unfortunately, haven't had enough time to look at this week. So I don't have any comments right now, other than that.
Chair Romano, I just want to clarify, Sandy Beach is actually not a public beach. It's owned by a private entity. It's permitted that the public can attend there, but it's not owned by the municipality. With that said, I'm not aware of any distinction in either the Wetlands Protection Act or the Cohasset Wetlands bylaw between municipal beaches or private beaches. And I'm happy to be corrected by Mr. Holmes or Ms. Pechtel. The performance standards don't make that distinction. And in fact, I believe that under your Cohasset Wetlands regulations, you also protect the additional interest of recreational value, which doesn't appear in the state act. So I hear Mr. Bell, but I don't think that matters for purposes of analyzing this project under the relevant regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Brodsky. Commissioner Berrigan?
Yes, question for Brad. Brad, could you repeat where you're going to relocate the debris that you rake up from one area from the beach to the other section? I couldn't see.
Sure.
But I don't remember what you said it was where, and I couldn't see the print on it.
Brendan, do you mind? Thanks.
Sure. Wait,
There's
yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Brendan. Right there along the toe of the coastal bank, there is where they have been placing the any small area, pebble and stone that is raked up. They place it along the toe of that bank, and it has actually helped to slow any erosion. It's kind of veneer it out in that area.
Okay, I understand.
Charlotte,
Okay.
maybe you can bring up near map and highlight that area. Might make more sense to people to see it from an aerial photo.
Thank you.
Keep to it.
That's the location right there, and between the beach and the lawn, you can kind of see that below the little turnaround driveway.
Sorry, I was muted, but yeah, this is the rough spot, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So just on this issue, it seems like there's different things being removed, right? There's seaweed, nuisance seaweed, there's sediment, there is, I guess, different type of gravel and stone that was going to be deposited there. And some stuff is going to be buried and some stuff will be spread out across the beach and some will be deposited there. Brad, do you think you could help clarify?
Sure. When we say bury, if there's excess seaweed that's collected, it would be basically placed on top of that pile. It's not, we wouldn't have an excavator that would dig in and then bury into the beach. It would be placed, and then when we say buried, it would be covered with any of the sediment. There might any of that area might be just moved around a little bit, but there wouldn't be an excavator to dig a hole and then dump the material in. It would be placed on more or less placed on top of that area and then covered. The activities in the past that were done here are not necessarily the activities that are permitted in this beach management plan. It wouldn't be as extensive. There are some allowances of leaving a certain amount of rack and following the program. So it would be a more controlled event.
And Chair Romano, it's Adam Brodsky. I just note, and it's in the beach management plan, CZM requires that effort shall be made to remove as little sediment, sand, gravel, and cobble from the beach as possible to minimize impacts and leave important substrate in place. Seaweed should be shaken or sorted to remove as much sand, sediment, and live organisms as possible. And we proposed a condition affecting that. It's essentially the same. Efforts shall be made to reposition as little sediment, sand, gravel, and cobble from the beach as possible to minimize impacts and leave important substrate. We're essentially repeating that as part of our proposed beach management plan. So that would be a requirement and a condition of this order if granted.
And sorry, Commissioner Berrigan, I interrupted you. I would ask a couple follow-up questions, but I don't want to interrupt you.
No, my question was answered. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. So when you say you're going to, the seaweed is going to be shaken, what, I mean, so if it's going to be, if you're having a gas powered, mini tractor with a pull behind rake, when's the opportunity to shake out the whatever's living from the seaweed clumps? How does that work?
I believe some of that would be, any of the excess seaweed that was in piles would need to be raked by hand, and not just run the beach raking machine over it and over it. So that's where there'd be some more focus. You wouldn't, I don't think the machine would be able to just go over a pile of or excess pile of seaweed like that. It would have to be raked to a degree and then kind of spread out in order for the machine to be able to pick it up. So that's when the opportunity would be to get some of that material out of the seaweed.
Wait, so the 75,000 square feet is going to be raked by hand first? And then
No, what I'm referring to is if you had a pile of seaweed along the rack that was heavy and you were trying to get some of that seaweed out. And again, not all of it can go because the management plan requests to leave some of it. But you wouldn't be just running the machine over that back and forth. You'd have to do some level of hand raking in order to prep the area for the beach rake.
Okay, I think I understand. Commissioner McIntyre?
Yeah. Thank you. My impression of this project is to create a sandy beach where I'm not sure the provision about the stone removal and some of the photographs showing, the piles of stone. Based on previous, the enforcement order, it seems to me like the intent of the raking was to remove stones to create a sandier beach than there was. So what we're saying now is that the plan is to rake the beach to remove just seaweed and not the stones, because if the intent is to remove the naturally occurring stone to create a sandy beach where then I'm not for that. But I think it's not apples to apples when we're talking about sandy beach, because sandy beach, most of the rocks are down in the intertidal area and they rake the sandy area. So can you just clarify that? Is the intent not to, I know Mr. Brodsky just said that, but based on the photos and what we've seen, how it looked after the first enforcement order, before and after, it seemed like that's what they were going for.
But Mr. McIntyre, this is Adam Brodsky. We're not excusing the past activities which we admit were unauthorized. And so we tailored the beach management plan to what's typically allowed on a coastal beach and made it very specific. So we can't have a clean beach as what was done in the past. We need to leave organic material along the rack line. We need to make efforts to remove as little sediment, sand, gravel, and cobble from the coastal beach. So this is not going to look like what it was in the past, because what was done in the past didn't conform to the performance standards. The purpose of this exercise is to bring this activity into compliance. And which is why we try to provide as much detail and specificity in the beach management plan, which will be incorporated in an order. And obviously, if this is not followed, then the landowner would be subject to additional enforcement. So I'm not sure that provides you any, that's what our intent was.
Oh, thank you.
Chris, can I jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just sort of echo, or maybe not, maybe it's my own thought. I mean, a lot of this language, efforts shall be made as little as possible, minimize impacts. Like none of it has any real, substance to it. It's all just sort of like, best efforts, meaning what? And that's the part. I mean, that's the part that's sort of giving me a little bit of trouble. Even with the sort of the analysis of how the seaweed clumps are going to be shaken. It seems like they would need to be shaken right there on the beach, right where they were. And then what happens to, let's say, little crabs or whatever fall out of the seaweed pile, and then the seaweed is taken away. That crab's going to roast in the sun, or whatever it is there, the sand fleas, whatever. I mean, we are trying to protect the habitat here. So it just seems like, it just seems like the whole thing is really just to make, sort of a groomed, manicured beach. And another difference, apples to oranges with Sandy Beach is, every year Sandy Beach, they bring in some amount of tons of basically play sand and put it on the beach. And, and that's not obviously not something you're proposing here. And it's not it's not necessarily something, as much as I love Sandy Beach and my kids have always loved to go there. And I spend a lot of time there too. It's certainly not the most environmentally, it's certainly not something that I relish from a conservation standpoint, but it really is sort of apples to oranges. But back to my initial point, just a lot of the language in the beach management plan really sort of lacks any specificity or, just, I don't know if teeth is the right word, because we're not trying to, enforce something exactly. I just don't really get it. I'm going to drive a rake. I'm not going to drive a rake. Yeah. Anyway, that's Adam. What do you think? Or Attorney Brodsky?
So, Chair Romano, first, I want to, forgive me, correct you. There's no play sand that is deposited on Sandy Beach. What happens is, over the winter, as a result of wind, sand is transported from that beach onto the parking lot. And then at the beginning of the season, the DPW collects all that sand, and that sand gets spread. So it's not new sand, it's actually sand from Sandy Beach with no new material.
Are you certain of that? They don't bring in truck buckets of sand onto Sandy Beach?
Again, I can tell you what's been approved by this Conservation Commission in its order of conditions, which regulates that activity.
The Sandy Beach is something of an issue for the commission anyway. So
I just wanted to make that point, and we're not proposing. Interestingly, there was a question, we made mention of beach nourishment, and it's something we certainly would consider in the future here. We're not seeking that activity. But I want to say that the language that is in our beach management plan is straight out of CZM's management documents. That's the state's language to describe these activities. With that said, we can provide you, I think, with more specific language. So for example, I'm not sure it's specified in the notice of intent. I believe that we have the ability to set the depth of the rake to a certain setting. And we've talked internally about not using the most deep setting and using so we can specify more detail, again, to try and provide more a comfort level with regarding the material that's going to be left on the beach. With that said, I'm not sure how we quantify it. There's no way we can quantify. You can only remove, 100 cubic yards of seaweed because it varies from season to season. And so the best we can do is take the state language, which we also used for Sandy Beach. We're happy to try and make it more specific, but I'm not sure what more we can do in that regard.
I'm not sure either. I just reading it, it seems like just there's a lot of sort of vague language, which at the end of the day wouldn't really allow us to require anything specific, from, as far as, how the beach is going to be managed. But anyway, Commissioner McIntyre, sorry to interrupt.
I think that was my main point, but does CZM provide guidance on private beaches? You referenced their guidelines. Is it do they specify?
So there's no specification as to private or publicly owned. It's entitled Managing Seaweed Accumulations on Recreational Beaches. Whether it's owned by a public entity or by a private individual does not matter for purposes of the Wetlands Protection Act or for purposes of CZM's own guidance. You know, it's not an issue that's relevant.
Recreational doesn't at least connote, if not denote, a public beach.
No.
Okay.
So your wetland bylaw wants to promote recreational interests. Does that mean that your bylaw with respect to that interest only relates to public recreational interests?
Well, it's a separate set of instructions here. So I didn't know if that set that you're referring to has any further, illumination as to, what recreational means there. I mean, it means different things, different circumstances, clearly.
No, I mean, happy to send it to you. I'm sure Ms. Pechtel's got it. We provided it in connection with Sandy Beach. So there's no distinction.
Commissioner Magnell.
My only concern is this accumulation area there where they've already accumulated, it looks like a very large amount of sediment, what they call it, which is basically rocks. And is that going to continue to grow? Or I guess I've got the same concern as other commissioners in that, how will they minimize the amount of sediment, rocks, et cetera, that get picked up by the rake, certainly when they're doing mechanical raking. And how will they, try to not increase the amount of removal of the natural material that's kind of keeping the beach beach.
And Mr. Magnell, it's Adam Brodsky. Again, we'll provide you with additional information and be more specific about what we're proposing out there to try and provide assurance that, again, from an enforcement point of view, if Ms. Pechtel sees the beach looking like it did last year, you have an enforcement issue.
Would that, in the case of that kind of enforcement, would the stuff be replaced? Is that the intent?
Well, I can't speak. I mean, if there's a violation in the future, what's the remedy? I don't know. It's conjecture.
Okay. I'd certainly like to get more information on how the beach rake works. I think it's part of really what it is.
So
there's also sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I think we also referenced this, obviously, of course, Steve, you probably have not seen it, but we also did look at some beach raking guidelines, which I can share with the commission so that you guys can see that, and I'll send you guys the CZM beach raking. I don't know, Brad and I'm sorry, Stan, if you've looked at that. I think the guidance is from DEP, but I was pulling it up. But that's something that, like, I don't know if the beach raking language in the beach maintenance plan you've proposed is also in accordance with any state guidelines.
We looked at beach raking projects that we've done in the past, and this is a little bit more detailed than we've had in other projects. I've been in the Barnstable beach raking project with them, and it was a little bit more generalized. So this is a little bit more detailed.
Okay.
Ms. Bechtel, if there's some DEP guidance that I'm not familiar with, if you'd be so kind.
No, sorry, I was looking at it. It looks like it might be from Barnstable in collaboration with Woods Hole. At one point for the Sandy Beach plan, I was looking at the beach raking guidelines, so I can share that with you and your team. But yeah, I can't remember if we specifically referenced it for Sandy Beach. I just had it in my NOI files.
Yes, I mean, many municipalities have beach management plans. They're publicly available. So Situte's got a beach management plan. Hull's got a beach management plan. Because those are public beaches, those are publicly available documents. We haven't done a survey of private beach management plans, which would be more difficult to find.
So I don't know. For me, I have some more thought to do on this. I mean, I get the point here. I would like to give this a little more analysis. I'm happy that we're doing this in April because we have some weeks necessarily before we would really need to start in earnest for them to enjoy the beach the way they're hoping, the way they want to, and what they're trying to get approved. Is that a fair assumption as far as timing, Adam or Attorney Brodsky?
Yes, I mean, we can't do any work without your authorization, and we'd like to get that as soon as we can. We need to provide you with additional information, so we're certainly willing to continue this matter and provide that to you.
So would any of the other commissioners like to chime in on giving, any additional requests for further information? But one thing with the depth, I don't know if maybe another specificity would be and I don't know exactly what it would mean to me, but the spacing between the tongs on the rakes that would be used, that seems like a relevant, idea.
Yeah.
And then, I guess you were saying, how many cubic, whatever, of seaweed, maybe that's not because, 1 month or 1 year might be different than the next, but to the extent that there's just more detail, just because reading the beach management plan, I get it. If Charlotte sees it looking like it did before, that's enforceable. And if she doesn't, but that's not really just anything we can do to make this have a little more specificity. So we know really what we're approving here. Because right now it seems like if we were to vote to issue an order of conditions on this NOI, it really wouldn't be anything substantial. It would be like, go ahead, and so anything that we can sort of lock it down with a little bit so we understand exactly what we're approving would be great. With that, do any other commissioners have anything else so we can get some more specificity for any continued hearing to discuss this so we really understand?
Yeah, in terms of the specificity, I think there was mention of more than one raking event. And if you could clarify that, is there a schedule, or would this be done on an as-needed basis? And just a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, and Mr. Bell, that is in the plan. It's at the beginning of the season and then thereafter as needed, depending upon storm events. And so we try to, again, we'll go back and try and be more specific. I'm not sure how more specific we can be on that, but
so it is specifically tied to storm events. Is that correct?
It says the beach raking activities are proposed within the summer season on an as-needed basis due to the variable rates of seaweed washed ashore.
It's not just following.
I think we need to tighten that up. I think we'd have to limit that. I would feel more comfortable if we knew when time frame when they would do the initial, and then I think if we're talking about Sandy Beach, there's this. I believe there's a specific number allowed of cleanings, but I'd have to go back and look. But
yeah, Mr. McIntyre, I don't recall. Similarly, they do a large cleanup. I don't recall what we did. We can double check that.
Do you think it might make sense to sort of base it on, I'm just brainstorming here just because I'm trying to figure out some specificity. Like we said, maybe like percentage of beach surface area covered by, nuisance seaweed, there's a threshold. I guess it would be tough to measure, but at least it would be something, that not, I'm just trying to figure out what we're approving here. So we can turn it over back to you, Mr. Attorney Brodsky and Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Holmes. But I'm just brainstorming on ways that we can get some specificity here.
Again, we'll come back with you. We hear you loud and clear. I'm not sure we can quantify it, but we'll do our best to provide additional language.
I think you're sort of it sounded like you were talking about how much do we remove, and I think my interest would be how much do you leave behind, and that could be quantified.
And that is, Mr. Bell, I believe, if I recall correctly, there's a reference to like 10% of the rack line in the Sandy Beach plan. I think that's where we ended up on that, and that's consistent with state guidelines.
Yeah, so 10%. What 10% of what?
Well, it's 10% of the organic material that's not cleaned off the beach along the rack line to provide sufficient habitat for organisms, and I think that's the rule of thumb.
Yeah, again, but 10% of what? 10% of what's there prior to raking, or
Correct.
10% coverage of the beach, or
No, I believe it's, I think it's 10% prior to raking. 10% of the organic material along the rack line is required to remain.
So we've been discussing this for about 40 minutes. I think, unless another commissioner has, something further, maybe we could entertain a motion. We don't have to. We can just continue it. And I think maybe it might make sense just to continue the enforcement order as well. But with the idea that obviously, I'm just saying it because it seems the right thing to do. Cease and desist following the August 20th, 2024 enforcement order is still in effect. So don't do anything on the beach. No raking, none of these activities. And let's just come back in a couple of weeks, and maybe before then the team can get us some more specificity. So sorry.
Before we jump to that, I just want to go back to the enforcement order and the current conditions that we referenced in terms of like the removal of stone, and just keep that in mind. And where are we going to start from? We have what's our baseline? Are we going to redistribute the cobbles? I just want to put that in everyone's mind to think about as part of this.
So, Mr. McIntyre, we've discussed that issue with the commission. The commission decided that there's no need for restoration here as a result of the winter storms. Things have been the conditions have been naturalized and changed. So that was already discussed and decided was unnecessary the last time it was in front of the commission. I do want to note that, just to keep you, the enforcement officer order also concerns 100 Whitehead Road, where there was an additional float that was installed. So there, you may recall that there's a pier, gangway, and a licensed float. That structure is licensed, and because of the conditions out there in the fetch, that again there was an additional float added to that system to protect the boat out there, but there was not a notice of intent or an amendment to the Chapter 91 license for that. Brad has drafted a notice of intent, and Brendan's got the plans almost ready. So we're going to be filing a separate notice of intent for that. And additionally, in order to get ahead of any compliance issues, I believe that there's been a swim float that was put off of this beach at 90, for which we can't find any order of conditions. And so we're going to be submitting a separate notice of intent to authorize that swim float, which is a temporary bottom anchored float. And I've already discussed with the harbor master, licensing the anchor system for that float under Chapter 91, Section 10A. It's a local annual permit as opposed to a waterways license. So we're trying our very best to clean up all of the loose ends out there.
Thank you, Attorney Brodsky. Chris, does that help for now?
Yeah.
I thought I would get back to Attorney Brodsky. What we did say, I don't think we voted on it specifically, but we were considering whether we needed a restoration plan for the work that was already what was done that the enforcement order was about. And we kind of figured, over time, nature would restore it. And we weren't requiring necessarily a specific restoration plan. I don't know if the commission had made a formal decision on that. And I think that's part of what the enforcement order is still in front of us for. And, also this notice of intent. So in response to Commissioner McIntyre's question, we had sort of, informally, although, on the record, discuss the fact that we don't necessarily need a formal restoration plan. But that being said, that's what we're talking about here, is how to go forward on this property. So let's not, ignore what, or discount the concern that Commissioner McIntyre brought forward, because it's going to be an ongoing concern, of course.
Chair Romano, I certainly was not discounting what he said, but Brad Holmes can tell you that there's no need for a restoration plan, that the area is renaturalized. So,
okay.
Well, there is a big pile of sediment that's in the area that you're proposing to dispose of the seaweed. sand, or not sand, but probably sand gravel that has been moved up there, and it has not been redistributed, at least not as of October 2024. It looks
Yes,
like
Mr. Bell, and we're proposing, yes, sir, and we're proposing to keep that there because it provides protection for that coastal bank.
Yeah, that section of the coastal bank doesn't have ledge. It's kind of tucked into the unarmored section of bank, and then there's ledge next to it. So it acts as a soft. It's not a soft solution because it's small pebble, but it's certainly not a boulder wall. But it helps to protect the toe of the bank there.
from what, natural processes?
Well, it looks like it had eroded in the past. It's very close to the driveway. I haven't done a lot of study on it.
The entire Atlantic coast is eroding.
For sure.
It's a
Sea level
natural,
rise and
that's a natural
it's
process.
ongoing.
But Mr. Bell, you understand that there are certain measures that are allowed under the Wetlands Protection Act to protect private property from coastal erosion.
Yeah.
Whether we all agree that it's the right thing to do, it's a permissible activity.
But the manner of conducting it is what's at issue, right? So that's what we're
Yes, sir,
trying.
which is why we included that in the notice of intent for authorization to keep that activity.
Yep. So, as far as the applicant team for the notice of intent and then ultimately the respondents to the enforcement order, do you have any further questions for us so that you can provide us something that will allow us to think about this a little more specifically for the next hearing?
Chairman, I'd just like to know when the next available date is so we can make sure that we can meet your deadlines and get it to you at least a week prior.
Charlotte?
Yep. So we have April 17th is our next meeting, and then May 1st is the following one, plus 14. So yeah, it would be April 17th, May 1st, and May 15th. Those would be the next couple hearings.
And I'm going to defer to both Brad and Brendan as to whether we can get that additional material submitted in time for the 4/17 meeting.
I'd like to coordinate amongst ourselves and then get the research and put together a submittal and then have it in for a week ahead of that April hearing. I think that's kind of tight. If we had to, we could, but May 1st would give us a little time to then get it into Charlotte's office. And
if it's all right with Charlotte, if you get it together in the next week, let her know and we'll get you added to the agenda. If not, we'll plan on May 1st. So that way you got some flexibility. Is that all right with you, Charlotte?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, if
Cool.
May 1st is the agreed upon date and you guys choose to come back earlier and just confirm that in writing, as long as I can get the documents by next Thursday, obviously, preferably, that would be, that I think that should give the commission enough time. Hopefully, we definitely would want to see at least a week in advance.
I was going to continue it.
Romano, can I make a respectful suggestion? You need to continue to a specific date.
That's why I was just going to say, I was going to continue it to the 17th.
Thank you.
And then, if you have the documents to us, so I just want to give you the flexibility. If you have the documents to us, great. If not, we'll at that hearing, nobody shows up and I'll continue it to the 1st.
Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
okay. Yeah. So if you want to continue to 4/17 and then just let me know if you can't make the week deadline, that's fine. Yeah.
All right.
And sorry, one quick question I had,
okay.
because obviously this would depend, of course, on confirming the continuance date. I did note in my comments that I wasn't sure if the commission in this particular case wanted a site visit or if you guys were sufficient with the aerial imagery that we usually look at on NearMap.
It's another thing I was actually going to suggest and ask the commission what they thought of. Would you guys like? I mean, I think a site visit might be useful for me to sort of get a sense. I mean, I've certainly looked at the images enough over the last few months, but walking it might not be a bad idea. Any other commissioners have any thoughts on that?
Agree. Yeah, I think be good to see what the rock pile looks like and the access point where they're going to drive the tractor up. I would like to see that.
And also the current conditions. and also the current conditions. What has been recovered, particularly in both cases, in both 90 and 100 Whitehead. I just got one more comment is that you might want to go back and take a more detailed look at the Sandy Beach plan, because they're much more specific in how things are raked and how things are disposed of with respect to things, with respect to the seaweed and the like, what could be removed, what can't.
All right, so Charlotte, will you work with everyone to schedule a site visit?
Sure. And I guess in that case, Mr. Brodsky, Brad, Brendan, would you agree then that May 1st is a better continuance date while we set that up?
Can we leave it as is, because I'm sure the property owner wants us to move as expeditiously as possible.
Okay.
With respect to 100, I don't know when the floats are going in the water, so I don't know whether you just want to look at the pier. So I just want to let you know that.
I was more interested in the condition of the shoreline than the pier.
I just want to make sure that's at 90. That's the subject of this notice of intent. You will have the notice of intent for 100, but I'm not sure there's value to doing a site visit out there until such time as the float is in the water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, sorry,
Yeah, we'll
Charlotte,
plan
go
on a
ahead.
visit next week then, and if everyone in this screen can send me your preferred availability for next week, that would be awesome, and I'll find a date that works for the majority of people.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. All right, so then the NOI 2508 will be continued until April 17th. And I guess unless there's an objection, why don't we just continue the enforcement order as well? Which was going to be our next, what was next up. So we'll do the enforcement order that's now scheduled for March 6th tonight, or sorry, for April 3rd, continued for March 6th for unauthorized beach alteration by Minot International Limited, trustee Kingborn Trust at 90 and 100 Whitehead Road. We'll continue that also to April 17th. Thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate you working with us on trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen there.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
So next on, all right. Next on the agenda, I don't think I mentioned, I should have when we started, 39 Riverview Drive, the riverfront alteration is continued to April 17th, as well as the NOI 2504 and stormwater permit 2502 for the commercial building at 165 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, both continued to April 17th. So I apologize for not mentioning that earlier if anyone was here for those. The next, we had a further discussion of Holtec's plan to evaporate the water at Pilgrim Power Plant. I don't have anything additional that I think this commission can necessarily accomplish with that. I understood, and I've been reviewing some of the materials, so I'm happy just to move past that one. It was sort of an informal thing, but I don't really have anything additional. If somebody else wants to chat about that some more, I'm very interested in that. In that decommissioning, but I don't need to take any more time tonight with it. Okay.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry I didn't read the entire handbook, Valeria, but it was interesting kind of looking through that.
Pretty
so-
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Same.
with that, so we have let's see, we have some COCs or a COC. Why don't we just get to that, because we're almost done for the evening. So the next is COC for NOI 22-21 and stormwater permit 22-17 at 31 Dolan Lane, Lot A, Dolan Lane Realty Trust. Charlotte?
Yeah, so I think for most of you guys, if you remember, this originally was submitted as an NOI and stormwater permit in 2022 to put the, it was a new home and a driveway. And the original plan was to put the driveway through the wetland. We obviously did not let that fly. And so it was pushed entirely outside of the 50-foot buffer. The only catch was it had to go through somebody else's property. Those discussions did not end up getting accomplished. And so the applicant resubmitted a brand new notice of intent and stormwater permit in 2024 to put the driveway in a different location. It's actually at the end of Dolan Lane. There's an upland portion that you can access outside of the buffer zone, come up, loop around the abutting property around an IVW and going to the same location of where the house was. So the applicant got a new order of conditions and stormwater permit in 2024 and plans to move forward with those plans and no longer move forward with the 2022 plan. So the applicant and his team submitted a COC request to close out these invalid permits. And no work has been done to date. I did drive by the site, looked on aerials. The applicant plans to eventually start this project in phases because the well has to apparently be constructed first, according to either building or Board of Health regs. So I will be working with him under the 2024 permits. So with that being said, with no work being done under the 2022 permits, we can vote to issue a COC based on an invalid order of conditions that no work was completed. So we don't need ongoing conditions since obviously there's a new permit set.
Great. Thanks, Charlotte, for that summary. So with that, I would make a motion to issue an order of a certificate of compliance for NOI 22-21 as an invalid permit where no work was done. Do I have a second?
Tom Bell, second.
I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Commissioner Magnell,
Steve Magdalene, aye.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Valerio Romano, aye. And then I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of completion for stormwater permit 22-17 for an invalid permit where no work was done. Do I have a second?
Tom Bell, second.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Commissioner Magnell,
Steve Magdalene, aye.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Blair Romano, aye. So with that, NOI 22-21, a certificate of compliance has been issued and that's closed out. And stormwater permit 22-17, a certificate of completion has been issued and that is closed out. And Charlotte, you'll work with the developer on the new approved order of conditions. Is there a new stormwater permit also?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a new NOI and stormwater.
Okay, great. So with that, I think we're down to some agent updates, unless there's something else that I should be thinking about.
Nope. Yep. I can go through those.
Valeria, did you really wanted to talk about that issue? I'm sorry, I was reading something else, but you still itching to talk about the power plant? Is that what you
Oh,
were?
no. So yeah, I just mentioned it very briefly. I know you're reading something. I'm sorry. I mentioned it very briefly. I mean, for me, it's a hair on fire thing for me. I think it's terrible. I do appreciate Tom's wisdom though, and it has calmed me down some as far as how much I was worrying about it, really. That being said, I mean, just, unfortunately, Google's a little too powerful of a tool, and so much I don't know makes me, even more scared about it. But I didn't really need to belabor it. I think, just the minutes. That's part of why I wanted to really, take a close look at the February 6 minutes, particularly to address what came out on this discussion from February 6th. But Chris, was there something else that you wanted to chat about with it?
No, I mean, I'm just curious, like what where it is and what can be done about it. Like where it is in the decision-making process and who,
Yeah, Kevin Weaver and I speak periodically about it. He's sort of the one who's, at least on the South Shore, who's been the most vocal about it as far as I could tell. He has, there's a number of cities and towns, or towns, probably not cities, actually, towns that are putting, sort of a non-binding referendum on their Springtown meeting to disapprove of the evaporation. Once our town is done with, its town meeting stuff, I would try to get on the select board's agenda and probably, just bring it up and see if I could, get everybody else's hair on fire like mine is a little bit. And then it's really up to, there's sort of little we can, there's not a lot we can do as a town that has any lasting effect. We can sort of threaten our politicians, I think, is kind of, unfortunately, make them understand that we care and we don't want this to happen. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be Texas's problem or some other less populated area of the country, but we also don't, I don't want it evaporated into the air that my kids and my dog and the fish I eat are breathing either. So anyway, that's all I have really, Chris. I don't have a big update. If you'd like to hop on a call, Kevin Weaver is really, really interested in this, and he'd be happy to chat, and the three of us could, just chat about it for a few minutes sometime, whenever is convenient for you. Even if you're just like driving home one day and you want to give me a call, I could probably even loop him in. Because it's instead of making too formal of a thing of it.
Yeah, no, I am. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that because I definitely been thinking about it a bunch. Anybody else have any other thoughts or comments on that? Okay, great. All right, Charlotte. Construction updates.
Okay. So 3A, you guys may recall, this was a fun 3 notice of intent process for MassDOT proposing to add sidewalks, bike paths, improve ADA access, walkways, all that stuff from 70 feet up from Sawyer Street all the way into Henry Turner Bailey Road in Scituate. I just did a kind of a half pre-construction site visit walk with actually someone from DEP from the Boston office, the contracting team, the conservation agent in Scituate, and the professionals. We walked the entire site, and that was actually something that I did not get to do because last year I was on surgery leave. So we did look at the entire site. They have not put down erosion controls, but they will be doing that soon. We did discuss during the site visit that given the length of the site, which is obviously, I think it's a little over a mile, they are going to be doing it in phases, and I think it's best to set up the barriers and the limit of work in phases as long as they don't go past those lines. So I'll make sure that that is happening. So they're probably they did say they wanted to start on the Scituate side. They will probably go into Cohasset a little bit past maybe, I think, Scituate Collision, and then they're going to stop there and then slowly move their way down into Cohasset. So instead of putting the entire barrier down, which is extremely expensive and will just go flat over time, it's better to, work in those shorter limits of work and set everything up. So I'll just be doing my pre-construction visits and site visits, obviously in pieces, but I think that's easier to manage instead of the entire mile length of the site, driving up and down and trying to see what's going on. And that'll be better for updates from the town's end of, where they are and where their progress is. I will be reaching out to a slightly different team, but still kind of the same team. It's interesting because MassDOT's so large. They're going to do another pre-construction visit at the Pond Street intersection soon. So they will definitely set the barriers up there. They might be doing some different kind of work there, not the major sidewalk work, but they will definitely be working probably in that intersection as well. So yeah, this will just be a process, guys. I'll try to keep everybody updated as much as I can. This is obviously a big project. So we'll follow it as closely as possible. The wetland scientist was out there. The certified arborist was out there. There's definitely a lot of materials that they need to get me prior to construction. So I have to send that as a reminder to them. They are recording the orders. So right now they're definitely, working with us, in Scituate. So yeah, it'll just be a really big project. So just giving you guys fair warning if you use 3A for your commutes. 83 Spring Street, I'll come back to. 24 Little Harbor Road. This was the Coastal Bank Restoration Project. They have reinitiated their invasive removal. I did notify them about that there's a special condition limiting the invasive removal from mid-April to August because of bird nesting season. They do think they can remove the invasive trees over the next few weeks before mid-April. So I will be checking in with them about that. And they're removing everything by hand. I was out there earlier this week. So they're not obviously bringing in any excavators, although there is one thing that we may have to do, which I will provide more information about to you, Valerio. There is a ton of yard waste that was dumped on the southern side of the site, and it was dumped there for like 40 plus years. It's several feet thick, and it's something that you cannot just remove by hand. So with a proper work plan, I may potentially allow the use of an excavator to just reach over the barrier and kind of scrape and pull it back. You know, it's depending on the distance, but I'll definitely make sure I can get details about that, because we did not have the order allow the use of an excavator. But with the amount of fill that's out there, it's a lot. You can't take it out with a rake, because I was walking on it. I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is so compacted. But I'm also concerned about anything falling into the water of the coastal bank. So that's something that we're gonna have to look into. What's up?
Is that something we would want an NOI for?
Well, we have an NOI. It's an order of conditions for the whole
Right.
restoration project.
This is a different, this wasn't addressed though, the deep fill, right? When we first talked about
It was mentioned, but it wasn't, I don't think, specifically looked at during the NOI process. So like I said, if they can get me a plan, I'll definitely look at it and I'll determine if it needs further permitting. But yeah, we'll have to figure that out for them to be able to take out the invasive species in that area. But I am very concerned about if you use any of machinery down there, especially with the steep slope right up against it, stuff may fall, obviously all
Might be
into the
better. I
water.
mean, in a sense, we obviously want it removed, but if it's going to be done haphazardly, maybe.
Yeah, no, I won't allow it to be done haphazardly. I'm just trying to see if there's a way that we can do it in a safe way that doesn't stress out the limit of work. But yeah, for the full restoration to happen, this kind of does need to at least get partially removed because the invasive species are growing on it. But yeah, so we'll look into that. I'll keep you guys posted. There is an administrative stormwater permit that I received. I think, Steve, you've looked at it. You didn't have any comments, but if you guys do have any comments, just send them to me. I admit I have not looked at it yet. It's been kind of crazy these past few weeks with staff transitions. So I will, I'll look at it, but I think it's just a pool and patio project. They're staying under the 5,000 square feet. So if you guys have any comments about that, just email me separately. And then last but not least, 83 Spring Street. Since now we're into the spring season, this driveway is getting kind of nasty, kind of wet. I did walk the site with the engineers and with Valerio and Tom just to kind of look at some emergency tactics that we may have to implement, but we definitely are not approving anything on that driveway in terms of regrading or filling or anything like that. We're looking at it as a construction safety and emergency BMP kind of thing. So I'm waiting for that information from the applicant.
Yeah, Charlotte, let me interrupt for a second. I think I
Yeah.
asked you this on Tuesday. You still haven't received anything from them?
No,
Tom,
I think they're going to scale it all back. I think they're just going to leave it and scale it back, and they're just going to probably ask for permission to fill in some of the vehicle ruts, which
Tom, I mean,
yeah.
they did say they would tell us within a day or two, right? And
They-
you
yeah,
just
and they didn't.
about the
I didn't get
size
any
of the
plans.
stone and whatnot. Yeah.
So
That's your
yeah,
recollection too, Tom?
Yeah, that's not good. I mean,
No.
they need to do something about it and
yeah,
soon. So maybe you can contact Mr. Wong and see
Yeah.
if
I mean, we weren't asking him for a lot, right? We were making every effort to make it, really affordable, and we weren't asking him to put the whole driveway back now, not till construction's done, but just at least pour some stone to fill the holes,
yeah.
gotta-
That's
you gotta
probably
save-
going to be the bare minimum that we're going to see out there, but I will definitely let you know as soon as I have that information. I have reached out to him over email, so I will just follow up with his professionals. I called one of his professionals today, and he still doesn't.
we don't want to get in a situation where we have a cease and desist.
No,
No, because we want that thing finished so that we
Yeah,
can
we
put
do.
it back together.
But
Right?
we don't want cement trucks driving on this thing in the condition it's in either. So-
No.
No, that's right. So yeah, but if Charlotte, if you need me to chime in or help out, I'm happy to, even stop by there and, whatever it takes.
yeah, I'll take a look. I have a lot of site visits to do tomorrow, so I'll swing by, and if the driveway looks a lot worse, for sure, I will definitely be potentially putting a temporary cease and desist until we can get some stabilization in there. So I'll make sure that they
Let-
give us that information and whatever measures they need to take without obviously changing the limit of work in that driveway, because there was no work that was approved in that driveway other than the removal of the 3 trees. But, definitely filling in some vehicle ruts at the bare minimum, fixing the barriers. Those are things that we really need to see, and it's a part of his order of conditions to maintain those barriers. So, you know, yeah.
Well, but before you issue a cease and desist, maybe, you know, chat with me, maybe Chris, you know, in our scheduled chats, because like I said, I don't want to stop the work there. I want that work to hurry up and get done so we can
Yeah.
put the property back together the way, you know, the way it should be. And
Yeah, that's the other thing. I just want to get it
Yes.
over with because, you know, this driveway he needs to probably, and I won't speak on it too much, obviously, because we have a quorum of commissioners, but something needs to be done about that driveway, and it'll most likely need to be done through additional permitting. So with that being said, I'll move on to other updates. So wetland revisions, Steve, I saw your comments. I just haven't gone through them yet. So thank you for sending those. And if you guys have gotten a chance to look at them yet, just let me know if you need, you know, if you want to set up some one-on-one time. And as Tom mentioned, it's better to download them instead of looking at them in OneDrive. And then to give you guys an update on my end, I know my workload is quite full, but I'm still trying to pursue grant opportunities because the town of Cohasset, I think, can really benefit from it. So for the last 2 years, I have been working and collaborating with CZM and Woods Hole Group to try and figure out restoration projects, water quality improvement projects in Cohasset. We tried to submit something for Straits Pond a few years ago, but it wasn't the right fit for the grant that we applied for. I think the project, Tom, if I'm saying, got a little too vague and deviated away from the grant's specific goals. Although I supported the project, it just wasn't going to work. So we have been looking at the Gulf River for the last few years. It's an impaired water body. I had originally been investigating some salt marsh restoration potential with Cohasset Conservation Trust and some of those larger salt marsh parcels. CZM has strongly hinted to us that they would prefer a more comprehensive, widespread restoration assessment before you start targeting specific areas. So with that being said, we met with the town of Scituate, my equivalent Concom agent and coastal zone manager, I believe, named Corey. So we met with her and then Woods Hole Group and CZM. And again, it was definitely heavily suggested to us that a comprehensive assessment of the Gulf River is a really good step to lay the foundation because there's been a lot of individual studies out there by different groups. So doing a system-wide assessment of the whole entire Gulf River system is something that we are looking into for a coastal zone management grant. So I will be working with Scituate on that. It will be a ton of work, but luckily I have Woods Hole Group helping me to help draft the scope, scale, and budget. They also did a similar project in Mattapoisett, so we can even use that potentially as a reference. So yeah, I will keep you guys posted on that, but that's just other stuff that I've been working on. And then I have that ongoing grant to plant 23 trees in town. I'm working with DCR on that grant. And so yeah, if you guys also see any other grants, I know I have a lot on my plate, but it's still something I think that's really important for the town. There's a lot of land conservation management grants, land acquisition grants. I'm still looking at a community garden opportunity at that pond parcel that the town owns that's abandoned right now. So there's a lot going on the back end other than permitting. And if you guys ever see a grant that might be intriguing for the town or any interested conservation groups, I'm happy to at least facilitate the conversation with those people. So, and then no major 48-hour issues.
Charlotte,
Oh, sorry.
on that collaboration with Scituate, I think that's a great idea. Is that a grant? Would they be able to grant Scituate and Cohasset a grant? That's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
they also encourage regional and municipal partnerships with other groups as well. I think it makes the grant more attractive, I think, to fund in certain perspectives. But yeah, they can do that. You can't have more than one applicant listed.
I think that's great, and I think, I mean, it dumps into our harbor, and most of the work probably would have to happen in Scituate. So it's like, yeah,
we're trying to keep this as solely collaboration and not pointing the finger.
Well, I mean, it's just reality. It dumps into our harbor, and a lot of the input would come from the surrounding areas in Scituate. So that it makes sense.
Keep in mind that half of the harbor is in Scituate.
Right. Not the oysters, though.
Yeah,
oyster-
we're not, we're focusing on a
doing.
system-wide thing. We're not gonna pinpoint, but, yeah, so, I mean, politically, I really hope that this doesn't become an issue because the Situate Concom agent, her name's Jen. Jen and I are on the same page. We want this to happen. We're working with Corey, who's a floodplain planner manager, I believe. So yeah, we're on the environmental side, we're all on the same side here. We're the oyster stuff, we are, we're trying to keep this in terms of science and restoration and yeah. So hopefully we don't get stopped by upper management or anybody in particular. So, but everyone's on board with it so far. And CCM has heavily hinted to us over the years that this is what they're kind of looking for. So
Well,
yeah, the
yeah, let
message
us
has been
know.
received.
Well, we can help. That's a great approach.
Yeah, I'll let you guys know. Definitely a letter of support from Concom, I'm sure, from both Concoms would be awesome. So I'll reach out to you guys about that. Yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. So it's definitely a big project, and it'll lay the groundwork for lots of other restoration projects that we've been looking into in that whole area. And Tom, it's still on my list to eventually figure out if we still want to do something in Straits Pond, but I put it on the back burner for now to focus on this. I think Christian Crawford has enough going on in Hull, so.
Yeah, well, remember that he's got big plans there and
Mhm.
will be responsible for 25% of the cost there.
Yes, yep, I've forwarded that to DPW.
Good.
Yeah, so I'll check in with them on that. That's a good reminder. But I also had no 48-hour issues. I don't know if any other commissioners did, but yeah.
No. Wow, it's not even 8 o'clock.
I know. Isn't that
I love
awesome?
it. Yeah, it's an early night. Well, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Tom Bell second.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. The April 3rd, 2025 hearing of the Conservation Commission is now closed.
Thanks.
Yay.
So,
Night,
have a great
Third
night.
meeting.
Record fast.
Yes, it
Hearing.
Yeah.
was.
Thank
Take
you,
care, all.
Hey.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Charlotte.
And